The rain was relentless that night, hammering the roof of my taxi like a warning I didn't heed. I've driven these neon-lit streets for a decade, the engine's low growl my only solace after the life I left behind crumbled. But nothing could have braced me for her. The bride who slipped into my back seat just past midnight, her white gown stained with rain and regret. Her mascara-streaked face glowed faintly under the dashboard light, and she clutched a single wilted rose, her knuckles white like it was all she had left. I didn't know then that she was no ordinary bride. She was an heiress, carrying a secret that could unravel everything, including me. Her sobs were barely a whisper, drowned by the hiss of tires on wet asphalt, but they cut through me, stirring. Memories I'd buried long ago, nights I'd spent running from my own mistakes. I wanted to ask, who broke you like this? But my voice caught, trapped by the weight of my own ghosts. Instead, I watched her in the rearview mirror. Her, trembling hands twisting the rose's stem until it snapped. What was she running from? A groom? A family? Or something darker? Something that left a folded note slipping from her purse, its edge stained with what looked like blood. The city lights bled into streaks of amber and crimson, and I felt it. A chill, like the universe was warning me this ride would upend my life. Her pain wasn't just hers. It was a mirror, reflecting the fractures I'd tried to forget. I wasn't ready for where this night would take us, but I couldn't turn back now. If you've ever been haunted by a moment, you couldn't escape, or met someone who changed everything, share your story below. Hit that like button, subscribe, and join me on this journey, because her secret is only the beginning, and what comes next will leave you speechless. Rain slammed my taxi like a fist, each drop a warning I was too damn stubborn to heed. For a decade, I've haunted Chicago's neon-lit streets, the engine's growl my only shield against the ache of losing my daughter, her crayons, her laugh, gone because I was a fool who thought whiskey could fix a broken life. But that night, past midnight, she slid into my back seat, a bride drowning in her own despair, her white gown clinging to her like a lie. Lila Wentworth, though I didn't know her name yet, clutched a wilted rose, its petals bruised, her knuckles white like she was holding her heart together. Her mascara ran in black rivers, catching the dashboard's sickly glow, and something in me cracked, a fault line I'd ignored for years. The city was a beast that night, its pulse throbbing with menace, neon signs bleeding red and gold into the rain-soaked dark. I've driven these streets long enough to know they hide as much as they reveal. Drunks, dreamers, souls running from something they can't name. But Lila? She was different. Her sobs were knives, slicing through the hum of the engine, sharp as the memory of my daughter's last wave before her mother took her away. I caught Lila's eyes in the rearview mirror, haunted, raw, like she'd stared into hell, and it stared back. They held a story I wasn't sure I wanted to hear, but my gut already knew I was part of it. A folded note slipped from her purse, landing on the seat like a confession. Its edge was stained dark, blood maybe, or something worse, and my pulse kicked up, a drumbeat of dread. I've seen enough in this job to know trouble when it's staring me down. But this felt personal. Like the universe was daring me to dive in. Where to? I asked, my voice rougher than I meant. Her answer came soft, broken. Anywhere but back. It wasn't just a destination. It was a plea, a door slamming shut on whatever she was running from. I wanted to ask more, to shake the truth out of her. But the words stuck, trapped behind years of my own silence. The radio crackled, cutting through the tension like a blade. Lila Wentworth, missing heiress to the Wentworth real estate empire, the announcer droned, and my stomach twisted. Her. It was her. The name hit like a punch, tying her to a world of money and secrets I had no business touching. But her eyes in that mirror, her trembling hands, they weren't just an heiress's. They were human, broken, and they dragged me back to the night I lost everything. I didn't know what she was carrying, what that note meant, or why her pain felt like a mirror to my own. But I knew this ride wasn't just a fare. It was a collision, a shattering of the walls I'd built to keep the world out. My foot eased off the gas, the city blurring around us, and I felt it. A pull, a warning, a promise that Lila Wentworth was about to change everything. And I was already in too deep. Her name was Lila, she said, just Lila, her voice a ghost drifting through the rain's relentless hiss. I drove through Chicago's concrete veins, the city a labyrinth of wet shadows and secrets, my hands strangling the wheel like it could choke out the memories clawing at me. My daughter's tiny hand slipping from mine, her mother's cold goodbye. Lila's silence screamed louder than the storm, her fingers twisting that wilted rose until it snapped, the sound a gunshot in the quiet. I wanted to grab her, shake the truth out of her trembling frame, but I'm no hero. Just a guy who's lost too much to play savior. Then my phone buzzed, an unknown number glowing. Keep her close, or you're next. The rose's snap lingered, louder than the city's pulse, a warning I couldn't shake. Lila's diamond ring caught the streetlights, too big, too cruel, glinting like it was mocking her tears. I've seen wealth before, passengers flashing their privilege like a weapon, but hers felt like a cage, trapping her in that soaked gown. She caught me staring, her eyes narrowing, sharp as a blade, sizing me up. Ally or threat? I didn't know myself. A siren wailed somewhere, and she flinched, her hand crushing that blood-stained note tighter, like it held her life's last secret. I wanted to ask, to tear through her walls, but my own ghosts kept my mouth shut. You okay? I managed, the words clumsy, heavy. Her laugh was a shard of glass, bitter, broken, slicing through the air. It chilled me, not because it was cruel, but because it was familiar. I'd laughed like that once, when my life burned down and I had nothing left but this taxi. The text on my phone burned in my mind. Who was watching us? Why me? I glanced at her, her profile sharp against the rain-streaked window, and wondered if I was her driver or her keeper. The city's lights bled into smears of amber, each one a question I couldn't answer. Then the black SUV appeared, its headlights slicing through my rear view like a predator's eyes. Too close, too deliberate. My heart kicked up, a rhythm of panic I hadn't felt since the night I lost my daughter. Lila didn't move, but her silence shifted, tenser, heavier, like she knew who was behind us. I tightened my grip on the wheel, the taxi's engine growling defiance, but my mind was racing. That note, that text, her flinch at the siren, they weren't random. They were pieces of a puzzle I was already part of, whether I liked it or not. I stole another glance at her face a mask of fear and something else. Resolve, maybe, or desperation. Chicago's streets twisted around us. A maze I knew by heart, but tonight they felt alive, conspiring. The SUV hung back, just enough to keep me sweating, and I realized this wasn't just about Lila. Whoever sent that text knew me, knew my weaknesses, my failures. I thought of my daughter, her face fading with every year I'd failed to find. Her, and felt a surge of rage. I wasn't going to lose Lila too, not to some shadow in an SUV, not to her secrets. But as the rain pounded harder, I knew this ride was only the beginning, and I was already drowning. I pulled into a diner's lot, its neon sign sputtering like a heart on its last beat, the rain turning the world to a smear of regret. Lila was trembling, that blood-stained note clenched in her fist like a sin she couldn't confess. In her face, I saw my daughter, 7, waving goodbye before her mother ripped her from me, my failures a noose I'd never escape. I wanted to snatch that note, to force her secrets into the open, but my own guilt pinned me to the driver's seat. Truths don't wait. They hunt you down, and Lila's was breathing down my neck. Her eyes locked on mine in the rear view, daring me to break her silence, and I couldn't hold back anymore. She muttered, "I can't go back," her voice raw, like she was tearing herself apart. A bruise peeked from her sleeve, fresh and ugly, and my stomach lurched. Someone had hurt her. Bad. The radio crackled, spitting out her name. Lila Wentworth, heiress to a real estate empire, missing. The words landed like a slap, tying her to a world of power and lies I'd only glimpsed in headlines. She saw me listening, her face hardening, into a fortress, but her eyes betrayed her, scared, cornered, human. I wanted to look away, to stay safe in my small, broken life, but her pain was a mirror, reflecting every mistake I'd run from. "Who's after you?" I asked, my voice low, urgent. The note slipped from her hand, hitting the floor like a dropped grenade. It unfolded just enough to show a scrawled threat. "You're mine!" My heart stuttered. Who wrote that? What did they want? Lila froze, her breath shallow, like she was staring down a ghost. I leaned back, instinct screaming to grab it, to know, but the air between us was electric, fragile. Chicago's rain kept pounding, a relentless judge, and I felt the city watching, waiting for me to choose a side. I'd spent years dodging choices, letting my daughter slip away. But Lila was here now, and I couldn't run. Then the black SUV rolled up, its headlights blinding, a predator locking onto prey. My pulse surged, hands gripping the wheel like it could save us. Lila didn't move, but her eyes flicked to the note, then to me, a silent plea. I hit the gas, the taxi lurching forward, tires screeching on wet asphalt. The SUV followed, its presence a weight on my chest, and I knew this wasn't random. That note, her bruise, the radio's warning, they were threads in a web I'd stumbled into, and Lila was the center. I glanced at her, her face pale but fierce, and wondered what. She wasn't telling me. The diner's neon faded behind us, swallowed by the city's dark maw. I thought of my daughter, her last hug, and felt a fire I hadn't known in years. Lila wasn't just a passenger. She was a chance to do something right, to not fail again. But as the SUV's lights grew closer, I realized her secrets weren't just hers. They were mine now, too. Have you ever faced a truth you weren't ready for? What kept you running? Share below. The rain kept falling, the note's threat burning in my mind, and I drove, knowing we were already too deep to turn back. The black SUV's headlights carved through the rain like claws, tailing us through. Chicago's slick arteries. My pulse was a war drum, but I kept my voice steady, cutting through the storm's roar. "Lila, what the hell's going on?" She was curled in the back seat, a ghost in her soaked gown, clutching that blood-stained note like it was her last tether to sanity. "They'll kill me," she whispered. And I couldn't tell if it was fear or truth twisting her words. I've danced with my own demons, debts that broke my knuckles, a marriage that left scars. But this was different. This was a plunge into a darkness I might not crawl out of. I swerved through traffic, the SUV glued to us, its driver a shadow behind tinted glass. Lila's sobs were a jagged rhythm now, words spilling between them. He wasn't supposed to find me. Who? The note's scrawl burned in my mind. "You're mine." A threat that felt alive, stalking us through the city's veins. A photo slipped from her purse, landing face up. A man, polished as a blade, his eyes cold as winter. Not a groom, not a lover, something worse. I wanted to grab it, demand answers, but the SUV's growl kept me focused, my hands white on the wheel. I turned into an alley, tires screaming, the taxi shuddering like it knew we were doomed. The SUV hesitated, its lights dimming for a breath, and I exhaled, sweat stinging my eyes. Lila's nails dug into my arm, her voice a hiss. "You can't trust anyone, not even me." Her words hit like a slap, and I saw it, a glint in her purse, a knife, small but sharp enough to kill. Trust? That died with my daughter's last letter, returned unopened. But Lila's fear was real, and it dragged me back to nights I'd failed to protect what mattered. Chicago's rain kept pounding, a jury convicting us both. The alley was a trap, but it bought us seconds, and I needed answers. "Who's he?" I asked, nodding at the photo. She didn't answer, her eyes locked on the note, its threat a chain around her neck. The SUV's engine rumbled somewhere close, a hunter circling, and my mind raced. Am I saving her, or burying myself? I thought of my daughter, her face fading. With every year I'd failed to find her, and felt a surge of defiance. I wasn't letting Lila slip away, not like that. Her warning, not even me, hung heavy, a poison seeping into my resolve. The knife in her purse wasn't just a weapon, it was a question, a crack in the story she wasn't telling. I glanced at her, her face a war of fear and secrets, and knew she was holding back something big. The city's lights bled into streaks of amber, each one a reminder we weren't safe. The SUV would find us again, and that note, that photo, they were keys to a truth I wasn't sure I could handle. But as I gunned the engine, the alley spitting us back into the night, I realized I was already too far gone to care. Lila's darkness was mine now, and the chase was just beginning, pulling us deeper into a fight neither of us could escape. The alley was a dead end, rain drumming a dirge on the taxi's roof, each drop a countdown to disaster. Lila clutched that photo like it was poison, her face pale under the streetlight's glare, her gown a ruined shroud. I grabbed it, my fingers shaking. A man, not her groom, his eyes cold as a grave. "Who is he?" I demanded, my voice raw, thinking of my daughter, how I'd failed her with every choice I made. I wouldn't fail Lila, not here, not now, but her words hit like a blade. "He's my brother, Julian." The world tilted, and I was falling into a truth I wasn't ready for. I shoved the photo back, anger surging, but her terror stopped me, cold. The black SUV's engine growled nearby, circling like a shark, its headlights a promise of pain. "He's alive," Lila whispered, her voice breaking. "The note's his. He wants me gone." The radio's words echoed in my skull. Gillian Wentworth, missing after a family scandal, presumed dead. But here he was, a ghost hunting his sister through Chicago's rain-soaked streets. I asked why, my throat tight, and she said, "I took something from him, something big." Her eyes were wild, like she was confessing to a murder. Headlights flooded the alley, blinding, and I slammed the taxi into reverse, tires screeching, praying we'd make it out. The SUV lunged, a beast on. Our tail, and my heart pounded like it would burst. Lila's note, "You're mine," wasn't just a threat. It was a chain, binding her to a brother who'd clawed his way back from the grave. I thought of my daughter, her last letter I never answered, and felt a fire I hadn't known in years. I wasn't letting Lila become another regret. But her secret was a weight, dragging us both down. "Why you?" I growled, swerving to dodge the SUV's advance. She didn't answer, her hands trembling, the photo crumpling in her grip. That knife in her purse glinted in my mind, a warning she wasn't just a victim. Chicago's streets twisted around us, a maze of neon and despair, and I realized her brother wasn't the only ghost here. My failures, my daughter's absence, they were riding with us, whispering I'd fail again. But Lila's fear was a mirror, reflecting my own, and I couldn't look away. The SUV backed off, just enough to let me breathe, but I knew it wasn't gone. Julian was out there, his note a promise of blood, and Lila's confession only deepened the mystery. What had she taken? Why her? I glanced at her, her face a storm of guilt and defiance, and saw my daughter's eyes, trusting before I broke her world. When's the last time a secret turned your world upside down? Tell me below. The rain kept falling, the city closing in, and I drove, knowing Julian's ghost was closer than I thought. Lila's secret wasn't just hers, it was mine now, a truth that could save us or destroy us. The alley spat us back, into the night, but the chase wasn't over. It was burrowing deeper, into a darkness where brothers and sisters, drivers and daughters, all carried ghosts that refused to stay buried. The road stretched like a lie, Chicago's rain-soaked streets offering no safety, only the illusion of escape. Lila's story spilled out in jagged pieces. Her brother Julian faked his death after their father's betrayal, now back to reclaim a fortune stained with blood. His note, "You're mine," was a vow to erase her life, her everything. Her fear was a virus, infecting me, dragging up memories of my daughter's last hug, the one I didn't deserve. I wanted to save Lila, to be more than the failure I'd become, but Julian's shadow was everywhere, and I was drowning in doubts I couldn't outrun. She showed me another photo, Julian, older, a scar slicing his cheek, his eyes burning with a hate that felt personal. 2 cars now, the black SUV and a sleek sedan, boxed us in like wolves circling a kill. Lila's voice trembled. "He's been watching me, leaving notes, breaking me." Her words were a mirror to my own cracks, losing my daughter to my mistakes, my life to a bottle. I asked why she ran tonight, and she admitted the marriage was a desperate bid to escape him, a plan that crumbled under Julian's gaze. A gunshot shattered the side mirror, glass spraying like confetti, and I swerved, my heart, a wild animal, in my chest. The city's neon bled into a blur, each light a scream we couldn't answer. Lila's hand brushed her purse, where that knife hid, and I wondered what she wasn't saying. Was she prey or predator? I floored the gas, the taxi groaning. But the cars kept pace, their headlights a relentless accusation. "He'll kill us both!" Lila screamed, and I felt the truth in her words, a weight I couldn't shake. Chicago's streets were a trap, twisting tighter with every turn, and I thought of my daughter, her face fading in my memory. I'd failed. Let her slip away, but Lila was here, her fear a second chance I didn't deserve. The sedan pulled closer, its driver a shadow, and I saw Julian's scar in my mind, his rage a fire that would burn us all. Lila's confession, stealing something big, hung between us, a secret too heavy to carry alone. What was it? Money? Power? Something darker? Her hand trembled, the photo crumpling, and I caught her eyes in the rear view. Defiant now, not just scared. That knife wasn't just protection, it was a plan, a piece of her I hadn't seen. The SUV surged, bumping our rear, and I gritted my teeth, weaving through traffic, the city a maze of danger. Julian wasn't just hunting her. He was testing me, knowing my failures, my guilt. I thought of my daughter's last letter, unopened, and felt a surge of rage. I wasn't losing Lila. Not to him. Not to my past. The cars backed off, just enough to let me breathe. But the hunt was far from over. Lila's scream echoed in my skull, her fear and defiance a call I couldn't ignore. The rain kept falling, Chicago's lights flickering like a dying promise, and I drove, knowing Julian was closer than ever. His note, her knife, my ghosts, they were all part of this, a hunt that would end in blood. And as the city closed in, I realized I wasn't just saving Lila. I was fighting for myself, for a redemption I might never earn. The motel was a rotting tooth on Chicago's edge, a place where secrets went to die, and I knew the owner owed me enough to keep his mouth shut. We ditched the taxi in a crumbling garage, Lila's gown trailing mud like a fallen angel's wings as I led her through back streets, rain soaking us to the bone. Her eyes burned with a new fire, defiance edging out fear, and I saw a woman ready to fight. I wasn't her hero, just a washed-up dad with a daughter's ghost in my heart. But I was all she had, and this hideout was our last stand against Julian's hunt. The clerk slid me a key, his eyes flicking over Lila's ruined dress, saying nothing but seeing everything. She collapsed on the bed, the rose's stem crumbling in her fist, a relic of a life she'd fled. I locked the door, the click too loud in the silence, and read the note again. You took my life. I'll take yours. Julian's words were a blade, carving into my resolve. Lila's voice broke the quiet, telling me his story: drugs, betrayal, a family that erased him to save their name. Her guilt was a weight, matching my own for losing my daughter. My phone buzzed, the screen glowing with a new text. You're in too deep, driver. Julian knew me, my name, my failures, maybe even my daughter's face. My hands shook, the tire iron by the door a poor defense against a ghost who'd already died once. Lila's eyes met mine, steady now, and I wondered if she was stronger than I'd thought. The motel's walls closed in, the rain a relentless judge, and I felt my past creeping closer, as real as the threat outside. A shadow flickered beyond the window, and I grabbed the tire iron, heart slamming against my ribs. Lila tensed, her hand inching toward her purse, where that knife waited, a secret she hadn't shared. Julian's story wasn't just about money. It was personal, a wound between siblings I couldn't understand. I thought of my daughter, her last letter I'd never opened, and felt a surge of shame. I'd failed her, but Lila was here, her defiance a chance to be more than my mistakes. The shadow was nothing, just a branch in the wind, but my nerves were raw, the city's pulse a threat in every sound. Lila's voice was low, fierce. He won't stop. Not until I'm gone. I wanted to believe I could save her, but Julian's text burned in my mind, a reminder I was no match for his rage. Chicago's rain kept falling, the motel a fragile shield, and I realized this wasn't just about Lila. My daughter's absence, my guilt, they were part of this fight, a reckoning I couldn't escape. I sat by the door, tire iron in hand, watching Lila's chest rise and fall, her face soft in sleep. She wasn't just an heiress. She was a mirror, showing me every choice I'd dodged. The note, the knife, Julian's shadow, they were pieces of a truth closing in, and I was caught in the middle. The city waited outside, its lights dim but never gone, and I knew our hideout wouldn't hold forever. Julian was coming, and with him, a fight that would tear us apart or make us whole. I gripped the tire iron tighter, ready for whatever came next, knowing redemption was a lie I'd chase anyway. The motel room was a cage, the rain's drone a lullaby for my frayed nerves, but peace was a lie. Lila slept, her face soft for the first time, like my daughter's before I lost her to my own failures. I sat by the door, tire iron in hand, thinking of her last letter, unopened, a wound I'd never healed. Then the door exploded inward, splintering wood and hope, and there was Julian, scarred, wild, a gun glinting in his hand. Not the polished air from Lila's photos, but a ghost of rage, his eyes mirroring the hate I'd felt when my life burned down. You picked the wrong side, he said. And I knew he saw my secrets too. His voice was cold, a snake's hiss, but his eyes blazed with madness I recognized. My own, when I'd lost everything. Lila woke, her scream cutting through the air, and threw herself at him, pleading, "Julian, stop!" He laughed, a sound like breaking glass, and said she'd stolen his life, his inheritance, with her lies. I gripped the tire iron, my heart a war drum, but his gun was faster, pinning me against the wall, its barrel cold against my temple. Chicago's rain roared outside, a witness to a fight I hadn't chosen but couldn't escape. Lila grabbed his arm, her nails digging in, and the gun fired, shattering the window, glass raining like tears. Julian's rage was a living thing, fed by years of betrayal, and I saw my daughter in Lila's desperate eyes, trusting, before I broke her world. I swung the tire iron, missing, my arm heavy with guilt and fear. He shoved me back, his scar twisting as he sneered, "You're nothing, driver, just like me." His words hit harder than the gun, a truth I'd run from for years. The room was chaos, rain leaking through the broken window, Lila's sobs a heartbeat in the dark. I thought of my daughter, her face fading, and felt a surge of defiance. I wasn't nothing, not yet. I lunged again, but Julian was gone, slipping into the night, his whisper chilling. "I'm coming for you both." The air was thick with his absence, a promise of worse to come. Lila collapsed, clutching her purse, where that knife hid a secret I couldn't ignore. I stood, tire iron dangling, my breath ragged. Julian knew me, my failures, my daughter's name, and that scared me more than his gun. Lila's eyes met mine, no longer soft but fierce, and I wondered what she'd do with that knife, what she wasn't telling me. The motel's walls felt thinner, Chicago's rain a judge waiting for our next move. I'd failed my daughter, let her slip away. But Lila was here, her fight my chance to be more than my regrets. The night closed in, the city's pulse a threat, in every shadow. Julian's rage was a fire, burning closer, and I knew he'd be back. His words, Lila's knife, my guilt, they were a knot I couldn't untangle, a fight I couldn't walk away from. I sat by the broken window, rain soaking my shoes, and felt my daughter's ghost beside me, urging me to keep going. Lila's breathing steadied, but her secrets didn't. The hideout was no sanctuary, just a pause before the storm, and I was ready, or at least I had to be. Lila's anger was aflame now, hotter than her fear, her words spilling like blood in the motel's dim light. Julian faked his death after their father framed him for a murder, a partner killed to protect the Wentworth empire, a secret buried in millions. Lila was the key, the heiress who'd inherited it all, and Julian wanted it back, even if it meant her grave. I was furious, at her for dragging me into this, at myself for staying, my daughter's ghost whispering I'd fail again. But Lila's fight was mine now, a chance to be more than the wreckage I'd become. She paced, her gown a tattered flag, telling me how Julian's notes had haunted her for months, each one a cut deeper than the last. My phone buzzed, the screen flashing my daughter's name, Julian's doing, a taunt that knew my heart's soft spots. I gripped the tire iron, the motel's walls too thin to keep him out. Lila's eyes burned into mine, fierce, and I saw her knife in my mind, a question I couldn't ask. The rain kept falling, Chicago's pulse a threat, and I felt the city tightening its grip around us. We found a burner phone in her purse, planted, its screen glowing with our every move. A leash Julian had tied us with. I called a cop friend, hoping for a lifeline, but his voice was ice, bought by Julian's money. Lila named our last hope, a lawyer, her father's confidant, the only one who knew the truth about the murder. But headlights flared outside, a warning Julian was closer than we thought. My heart pounded. My daughter's face, 7, smiling, urging me to keep going, to not fail Lila like I'd failed her. The secret wasn't just money, it was blood, a crime that bound Lila and Julian, in a dance of hate and guilt. I thought of my daughter's last letter, unopened, a weight I'd carried for years. Lila's confession was my mirror, running from truth, from family, from ourselves. I wanted to hate her for pulling me in, but her defiance, her scars, were too familiar. She wasn't just an heiress, she was a survivor, and I needed to be 1, 2, for her, for my daughter's memory. The motel's shadows grew longer, the rain, a relentless judge, Julian's texts, the burner phone, Lila's knife. They were pieces of a truth closing in, and I was caught in the crossfire. I asked, "Why me?" And she looked away, her silence a wall I couldn't climb. The lawyer was our only shot, but Julian's headlights told me time was running out. I grabbed the tire iron, my hands steady despite the fear, and felt a resolve. I hadn't known in years. I'd lost my daughter, but Lila was here, her fight my redemption. We moved to the door, the city's lights dim beyond the rain. Lila's hand brushed her purse, the knife's glint a promise she hadn't shared. Julian wasn't just hunting her, he was testing me, knowing my guilt, my failures. The lawyer's truth was our last card, but the headlights grew brighter, a beast ready to strike. Chicago's streets waited, a maze of danger and secrets, and I knew this fight was bigger than us. Lila's eyes met mine, fierce and unbroken, and I stepped into the night, ready to face the secret that bound us all, or die trying. The taxi roared through Chicago's rain-slicked streets, a dying beast carrying us to a penthouse where the lawyer held the truth, or our graves. Julian's cars were behind us, their headlights wolves in the dark, and my hands shook, but Lila was beside me, her eyes fierce, no longer a bride, but a warrior. I thought of my daughter, her last hug, ghost in my heart, and knew this was my final shot to do something right. Lila's knife glinted in her purse, a secret she'd kept too long, and I realized one of us wouldn't survive this night. We smashed through a gate, the taxi groaning, metal screaming like my nerves. Lila confessed she'd known Julian was alive, thought she could outrun him, but his rage was a tide pulling us under. The penthouse loomed, its windows dark, a tomb waiting to swallow us. I gripped the wheel, my daughter's face, 7, smiling, urging me on. Julian's cars closed in, their engines a growl of vengeance, and Lila's hand tightened on her purse. The knife's promise, a question I couldn't answer. Was she saving us or betraying me? The lawyer's office was a slaughterhouse. Blood, pooling on the floor, papers torn like lives. Julian stepped from the shadows, gun raised, his scar twisting as he sneered, "You're nothing without me, Lila." His voice was venom, but his eyes held pain, a brother broken by betrayal. I wanted to run, to save my own skin, but my daughter's ghost held me fast. Lila lunged, her knife flashing, and I tackled Julian, the gun firing, a scream in the dark. The world spun, blood and rain mixing, and I didn't know who fell. I woke to sirens, my head throbbing. Lila gone, the lawyer's body cold. The truth, her father's crime, Julian's frame-up, slipped away, a secret buried in Chicago's heart. My daughter's name echoed, a call I'd failed to answer, and I felt the weight of every choice I'd dodged. Lila's knife, Julian's gun, my guilt. They were a knot I couldn't untangle, a fight that left me empty. The penthouse was a grave, its silence louder than the city's pulse, and I was alone. Again. I staggered to the street, rain washing blood from my hands, but not my heart. Lila was out there, alive, dead, I didn't know, but her fight was mine, a redemption I'd chase through hell. Julian's shadow lingered, his rage a promise of more to come, and I knew this wasn't the end. My daughter's face, her last letter unopened, was a fire in my chest, driving me to keep going, to find answers, to be more than my failures. City's lights flickered, Chicago's streets a maze of secrets and second chances. I'd lost Lila, the truth, maybe myself, but I wasn't done. If you fought for someone you couldn't save, or chased a truth that broke you, hit that like button. Share your story of loss or fight in the comments. I'm here, reading every word. Subscribe, because this isn't the end. The next ride's waiting, and I need you with me. I walked into the rain, the taxi's engine silent, my heart heavy, but unbroken, ready for whatever came next. A truth, a fight, or a ghost I couldn't outrun.